Okay, you are live.
But I guess we are awaiting Mr. Raksing as well. Hello.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, Bridget sir, there is one more speaker we are awaiting.
Okay, fine. No, you can share the flyer by screen sharing till
Yes.
that.
Okay, yeah, just a minute.
Uh, I would recommend one thing that when we are starting the webinar, I think we should.
You're on mute again, Janet.
No, I was put in on mute.
Oh, okay.
Sherry, I was recommending that when you are going live, actually the webinar should be on because the chats that we are doing will be also on the live. So I think we should stop the live on the Facebook right now. It should go at 7.
By when can we expect our next speaker to join in?
I just received an email and he is joining in. So I think he should be there in another couple of minutes. Let me just reply him. Yeah, I've just sent him an email, Sherry, so he should be here. How many, but are there any pre-registrations that we have done for this webinar?
Hello.
Hey Rag, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I think Rag, you have to rename yourself. It says
Yeah.
Sherry Pillai.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Let me go ahead and do that. Yeah, good to see you all.
Yes.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yeah. So shall we begin?
Oh yes. So should I share my screen in that case?
Yeah, maybe I'll just introduce and then later on we can just share the screen.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. It's an opportunity for me for being the moderator for this webinar. I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Shari Pillai, and I represent International Relations Cell at Parallel University. So, just a brief introduction, even for the esteemed speakers today. Parallel University has been into the field of international mobility and so on for quite a long time. I would say more than a decade. And every year, we have been sending students under various programs. So right now, from past few years, we have even began an initiative wherein we can support our students who are planning for their higher studies abroad. Like after completing their bachelor's or master's here, if they plan to go for their higher studies abroad, we also facilitate that. And recently, we have seen, an increase in the number of students, those who come approach us who are interested for education in USA. Right? So I felt this is the right time where we can, call in experts like you who can be here and guide our students more and about the opportunities what you can have, they can have for USA and what options and everything that they can look forward to. Okay. So before I begin, I would take this opportunity to introduce to all of you. Today we have with us Mr. Rak Singh. Mr. Rak Singh is currently serving as a program manager for strategic global initiatives at Northern University, Arizona. Welcome, Mr. Rak Singh, for this webinar today. And we are really thankful for accepting our invitation and be here as a resource person for our students.
Thank you so much, Sherry, and definitely looking forward to the good conversation today, and certainly sharing with our students about opportunities here in the United States. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We also have with us Ms. Janet Turner. Now, talking about Janet, she has been, continuously guiding students, continuously being a mentor to the students, those who are aiming for higher education. She has been doing this for more than, I would say, 15 years or so as of now. And her core, expertise is in USA. So guiding students for, which courses, which university, and so on. So if you are the, one of the great resource person, Janet, that we can have today for our students, those who are aspiring for USA. So thank you once again for accepting the invitation and being here with us today.
Thanks, Shari. Thanks so much. And it's great being with Parul University. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. So shall we begin, Janet, then? Because we have,
Sure.
we can then take up all the questions that we have from our students.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Sure. So I'm just sharing my screen. Just give me a moment. Are you able to share, see my screen?
yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I'm not sure, Sherry, the first line of my session, will the students be able to do it? So I requested the students to put in their names and the subjects that they are currently studying in and which year of undergraduate education they are in. So we can have a kind of an idea that what is the crowd that we are talking to. So if the students are able to do it, please type in your feedbacks in the chat box, and I think Sherry will be able to see it.
Yeah. So
Please use the
as
headphones. You can.
yeah, as I said, we will be streaming live on Facebook. So
Okay,
definitely students can drop in their queries and everything on the comment box.
great. Also, we'll request the students to use their headphones for an enhanced audio quality. Uh, you can type in your questions in the chat box or the comment box on the Facebook page. Uh, let's go further. We are here to talk about the higher studies in the United States of America, which is the land of the opportunities. We call ourselves Education USA. Education USA is an advising centers network which is supported by the US State Department. So you can say that we are the official source when the students want the right kind of information. So the mandate of our centers is to provide the accurate, current, and comprehensive information regarding the US higher studies opportunities. There are hundreds of centers in 170 plus countries as of now, and we put together our more than 550 advisors who are working to guide the students for the education in the US. As you say, we have written Education USA at IAES. So let me say IAES stands for Indo-American Education Society, which is a non-profit organization based out of Ahmedabad, and it's the host organization which hosts the Education USA Center in Gujarat. So giving you a little bit of brief, why should you think about studying in the States? So this is what it is. So these are the open doors numbers which recently have come out for 2019 and 20, the year. There are more than 10 lakh students, international students who are currently studying in the United States. They are studying various academic programs. Also, there are students who are doing their optional practical training, which is kind of OPT. In a very general terms, if you want to understand, the OPT is the post-graduation kind of work permit that the United States government is providing the students. Where do they come from? So the origin of the students are here. So India is the second largest country who is sending the students to the United States. Of course, China stands for the 35%. But let me tell you that India last year was on a 17%, and there is a 1% of increase in the numbers of students who are going from India to the United States. How do they fund themselves? So, basically 60% of international funding comes from these various resources, which is your personal or the family funding, usually the savings that the family has gotten. The university is providing you the scholarships. There are private sponsors that you can take the, funds from. So these are the various funding that the students are getting into, and then they are providing the fundings to their own studies. So you can see there is undergraduate and graduate, both the percentages are given. A little bit tricky, it's not that easy to understand, but yet I would say that 60% of international students, they study with their own money. That's the silver line of this slide. And where do they study? So international students by state, if you see, California, New York, and Texas are the prominent top three, states of United States of America, where most of the international students are studying. Saying that, there are 50 states in the US. Okay, and there are immense accredited institutions across the US where you can go and study. But yes, these states can be prominently higher in the number because there are various reasons. The people of Gujarat being very practical and calculative, and they see that where are the living expenses are lesser, or maybe they have their relatives who are staying in the US. California being the Silicon Valley and high on the IT sector, probably most of the graduates who are going from India are studying computer science or information technology. So maybe probably because India and China are the first two major countries sending the students, could be the possibility that there are these states having larger numbers of students. But yes, equally good number of students are studying across the United States. What do they study? So what do international students study in the US? If you see, country-wise, information is given. So STEM, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And let me tell you a good news that the United States is thinking about it. You putting an A into STEM. So it will be a STEAM. So A stands for arts and design, right? So they are also trying to put that as a something which is highly in demand. The occupations are highly in demand, and they are looking forward to new people who can join in those and kind of industries. So India saying 78% of students are studying the STEM programs. Business and management, social sciences, and other fields, there are lesser in the number, but yes, there is a good increase in what we have seen. The students are going for a non-STEM courses also. Why should you study in the United States? That should be the first thing that may come into your mind, because outside India, if you look at, you have Canada, you have Australia, you have New Zealand, you have entire Europe, you have England, whatnot. So why should you study in the United States? So there are four different things that I would like to tell you about. Is, of course, the quality that you expect, the reputation of the US universities. We know when we are talking about the rankings, the top world-class schools are from the US. So the reputation of the US universities are really high. The value that the US education is providing you. When we say value, does not mean only when you're looking forward to go and stay in the United States. Even if you want to come back and utilize your education which you have gained from a US university, can give you equally good value back in India also. So that's what I call a value. Flexibility, nothing better than US if you talk about how flexible they are and what kind of variety of courses and majors that they provide to choose you. And also they give you an opportunity to even study a major which is entirely different probably from you have studied till date. the thing is that you have to justify yourself, that why do you want to change your major? What are the things that you have done to, create that passion for the particular subject that you are now looking forward to study? But that is possible. So I think these are the major thing, and that's where if you see the numbers, more than 1,90,000 students, Indian students, are currently studying in the United States. What can you study? What are the degrees that you can expect once you are done with your undergraduate program? So you can study a master's program, you can study a doctoral program, which is usually the PhD that we know. There are also integrated program, which is a master's and a combination of a PhD program. Of course, they would be a little bit lengthier in terms of the duration, but yes, there are still these possibilities that you can expect. How can we help you in terms of the services that we provide to our students? So there are group information sessions that we provide on US higher education system, various specialized topics that we cover. There are presentations done by a US university representative. As you know, we have Rag with us, and that's one of the example which you can relate to this particular point. We have library resources, which is available to the students from 10:30 to 6 p.m. Of course, we are currently working virtually, but then there are online resources that you can utilize to even work on your standardized test prep. There are membership, which are the expanded hours of library and resources, and one-on-one advising appointments with the advisors. We are also hosting the American Corner. American Corner is a resource center, which is again a State Department program that we have at our center. So Indo-American Education Society is also an ETS approved test center, an Education USA advising center, and an American Corner. So American Corner can offer you various resources in terms of the books and the other materials that you can think about while you are looking forward to explore United States of America. How can you reach out to us? You can connect with us through an Education USA app, which is absolutely possible on iOS or the Android phone. There, the Facebook, the mobile app is there. Just search with Education USA India, and you'll get the mobile app. You can also visit our host institution page, which is iaesgujarat.org. You can like our Facebook page, Education USA India, to get more updated. Even you can put in your questions in the message box, and we'll be able to answer it. You can use our official website to get more information on all the things which is there in terms of the process of the US higher education system. This is our information, the address. You can just take a screenshot or maybe take a picture or whatsoever is comfortable, and you can reach out to us on these email IDs or even visit our website for further information. Now, without wasting much of our time, I would invite Rag. And let me tell you guys, Rag is from Baroda. So he was the first one who came into my mind when Parul University reached out to us. So Sherry, Rag is from Baroda, and he is an MS University graduate. So Rag was equally excited to join us for this session. So Rag, I'm not taking much of your time. It's over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Janet. And once again, really appreciate this opportunity to be able to connect to our students. And Sherry, if I may ask, could I get the screen sharing option? And I'll be happy to share my PowerPoint slides here with students. So
you can, below there is a share screen option. So maybe you can start from there. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Excellent.
You can see your screen, Rag, now.
Perfect. So thank you so much again, and really appreciate this opportunity. And as Janet said, I started my journey. So I was born and brought up in Gujarat, and in fact, actually, my parents and many of my family members still live in Gujarat. So it's always wonderful to come back in person. To Vadodara, and all the lovely places, and get to see my friends and family members there. I started my own journey as an international student from India, from Gujarat. Almost 14 years back, I came to the United States to pursue my graduate school, my master's degree, and then basically decided to stay here with, certainly some great opportunities that came by my way. So as part of this presentation, I certainly want to talk to you a little bit about the processes, how things work, particularly in these times when things have evolved a little bit as we are going through, certainly a pandemic and some of the challenges that face around us. But certainly as a former international student, I think one of the key areas, as Janet pointed out, The United States remains as one of the most popular destinations for international students, certainly a very popular destination for students coming from India. And I think part of that is, you have a lot of different options in terms of higher education institutions. The US is certainly a hub when it comes to looking at different kinds of specializations. There are more than 4,000 higher education institutions in the United States when you look at community colleges, public and private institutions all put together. Now, what also makes the US very fascinating is particularly when our students from India look at the US as a destination for higher education, is the opportunities of experiential learning. This could be something as part of their internship, or perhaps this could be something that they might be considering once they have completed their education. Now, the US, of course, certainly has some of the leading technology companies. Some of the two platforms that we're utilizing today, both Zoom and Facebook, they of course originated here in the United States. But even when you look at the financial sector, some of the largest banks in the world, or if you look at the healthcare sector, some of the biggest healthcare companies in the world, they all sort of originated in here and certainly provide plenty of ample opportunities to all of our students who come here for their education and then stay on at the end of it to pursue perhaps a career here in the United States. What makes me incredibly proud is the fact that when you think about the United States and think about technology companies such as Microsoft or Google, their CEOs today started their journey to the United States as an international student themselves. So I think there's very few countries in the world where I could imagine students coming in as international students and then basically going on to become, pursue the top position in those organizations. And I think that certainly speaks to the immense opportunities of the US, the reasons why we call this the land of opportunities. So in terms of, again, the processing aspect and, a little bit more into the university side, I'm going to go ahead and be able to share a little bit more about myself and then, of course, the structures in place. Currently, of course, I'm based here in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I work as the program manager for strategic global initiatives for Northern Arizona University. Northern Arizona University, we're a public university. We were established in 1899. And of course, based here in Flagstaff, Arizona, with a total population of around close to 22,000 students as such. As we get into today's presentation, so we'll be looking at a few different aspects today, certainly looking at the application process, figuring out what is the right fit for you in terms of the university fit, the admissions process, of course, scholarship opportunities, the visa process, and just some overview of the different kind of universities or higher education institutions that international students from India could consider for their higher education here in the US. So we will go ahead and take a look at that. So of course, when you start looking at the US application process, and I say this as someone who came to the US as an international student, and now of course get to work on the admission side of things, getting to meet with international students from all over the world, including India, and being able to help in their application process as well. What is unique about the US higher education system is that grades are not everything. Again, trust me, grades are an important part of your application and admission process. But when US universities are looking at your application, it tends to be more from a holistic perspective. And that basically means that we might be looking at your letters of recommendation, your statement of purpose, which gives us a highlight of what exactly is your 5-year plan when you come down here to the United States and as you pursue your higher education. But also looking at perhaps some of your leadership opportunities, perhaps your extracurricular involvement, at your current institution, or perhaps the internship and other work experience that you have pursued over the course of years. So really, in terms of the admission process, I would say not just for my university, but for most US higher education institutions, the admission process relies not just on your academic grades, but overall on a holistic perspective. In fact, many institutions may go on to pursue even an interview with a candidate just to see if you're the best fit coming into their particular institution. Now, in the United States, we do have both public and private universities, and certainly there are really good options in both those major groups. The key difference that you see there is public institutions, of course, tend to be funded by state governments in the United States. Private institutions, of course, are funded by their boards, as well as supported by the tuition fees that students pay and so on. So again, a lot of times when having conversations with students, the question comes up: what is better? And honestly, both are certainly really good options. My institution, Northern Arizona University, we're a public institution, but then you have some really great private institutions in the United States, certainly many of those Ivy League institutions including. So certainly lots of good options to consider, and the basic difference that you find is where the funding comes from those kinds of institutions. Now, what is something to consider is, of course, even within higher education, there's many different kinds of institutions there as well. So for example, you have community colleges. These are institutions for two-year higher education. So you may be able to pursue your high school and then go on to pursue a two-year community college. Community colleges also offer lots of technical options as well. So for some of you who might be interested in going into the vocational route, it certainly presents a good opportunity. And then, of course, you have four-year colleges or public institutions. These are institutions that give you a four-year bachelor's degree. So this is something that is different from many institutions and colleges in India. That bachelor's degree in the United States tends to average about 4 years. This is true not just for engineering colleges, but let's say if you're pursuing a degree in social sciences, let's say a bachelor's degree in communication, or perhaps the fine arts as well. So you will find that most bachelor's degree here in the US tends to take a span of about 4 years of time. And then, of course, within those institutions, at public institutions, you may have master's degree as well as a PhD degree options as well. So again, you have, of course, the traditional public and private, but then within those institutions, you're looking at community colleges, the four-year colleges, public universities, but also private institutions, which may have the liberal arts perspective. Liberal arts universities or colleges in the United States tend to be more focused on courses perhaps in the social sciences, fine arts, and so on. And they tend to be much smaller in size. So for example, class sizes at some of those institutions may be much smaller as compared to some of the larger public universities. But then again, public universities may have a lot more degree options for you to consider and so on. So again, depending on what you're looking at, and of course, what kind of degree are you interested in pursuing? And perhaps if that's a master's program or a PhD program in a certain specialized area, you may be looking at a certain area or certain institution to perhaps focus on as you go through your application process. Now, when you keep that in mind, something to consider is the right fit. As Janet talked about, there's certainly universities here in the United States on the coast, California, New York, and some, of course, even in the South, states like Texas, that certainly tend to have large international student populations. Now, having said that, there's certainly a lot of good U.S. higher education institutions, including here in Arizona. And of course, here in Flagstaff, we are about 2.5 hours away from the city of Phoenix, which of course now is the 5th largest city in the United States, and certainly largest city here in the state of Arizona. So again, depending on perhaps the cost of your academic program, the location, you may have a family member living in that city, or perhaps certain peers that may be attending that institution, some seniors that they may have gone on. So there's certainly a lot of different criteria to choose a particular higher education institution, whether be it the location, the cost of that particular institution, the academics. A lot of times students talk about attending a particular institution, let's say on the East Coast or West Coast. But something to consider is that not every institution may have that particular academic program. Perhaps you're looking for business analytics or data science, or a program in fashion design or hospitality. So not every institution may have all of those programs. So keeping an eye on the kind of academic program that you want to pursue, and the institution that you're looking at also has that specialization available, certainly is important. Housing is another opportunity. A lot of institutions here in the US do provide on-campus housing, including here in Arizona at Northern Arizona University. And certainly the other aspect is the research element. As graduate students, many of you might be considering to pursue your master's or PhD in the US. So you might be interested in doing research. Again, that's part of your experiential learning opportunity. And that's where you might consider perhaps looking at research institutions which already have labs established, which already have faculty members doing research grants available. So when you apply as a master's student, you are eligible for some of those graduate assistantships that can certainly help you with covering your cost of tuition, but also helping you with some kind of stipend opportunities. So I think that's sort of the dual benefits of looking at sometimes research institutions, is that not only are you getting good experience that you can add into your resume, but also there may be opportunities for you to be able to get some kind of stipend, some kind of financial aid there also. And admission requirements, keep this in mind that US universities do not have a centralized admission process. So even here in the state of Arizona, let's say Northern Arizona University, we're a public university. There are other public universities here in the state of Arizona, but our admission criterias might be quite different. You know, we might be looking at different requirements. Some institutions may be asking for GRE, GMAT. Some institutions may not be putting so much of weightage on those issues, but rather focusing on your extracurriculars, your work experience, letters of recommendation, things of that nature. So again, these are all things to keep in mind when you decide to pursue your education in the United States, and basically taking all of these characteristics into focus, seeing what is the best institution that works for you as you basically go ahead. In terms of as you get ready for your application, and again, some of these things may be more at the undergraduate level, slightly different when you're looking at master's or PhD program. But one of the things that I do emphasize our students is to focus your attention on the admissions essay. Now, as we talked earlier, in the US higher education system, grades are important, but a lot of focus in terms of the admissions criteria is focused on your essay. Now, this is a fantastic opportunity. And I say this as someone who, you know, came as an international student. And, you know, I would certainly put myself as somewhere, you know, a mediocre in terms of my academics, but I was certainly involved in a number of extracurricular opportunities, you know, at my undergraduate institution in the city of Vadodara, and certainly, you know, taking on a lot of leadership opportunities. And as I put all of those experiences in my, you know, statement of purpose, in my admission essay, that was something that the institutions that I applied to paid certainly a lot of attention to. And I would say, you know, outside of the academic performance, that's an important piece for you to consider when you're applying to institutions abroad, and certainly here in the United States. Now, some institutions may also require you to consider GRE or GMAT. I have to say, due to the pandemic right now, a lot of institutions are waiving off many of those test score requirements, including certainly many of our academic programs here at Northern Arizona University. Now, the other part, of course, tends to be your English language proficiency. You know, a test like TOEFL, IELTS, or even Duolingo now can fulfill those English language proficiency. And certainly international students are required to take one of those English language proficiency requirements. Now, another couple of things to keep in mind as you go through the application process is deadlines. Much like the admissions process, deadlines for higher education institutions in the United States may be very different. Now, some institutions may have a deadline as early as in January, even if the semester starts in August later on this year. Some institutions may be able to accept your applications by May or June. So again, focus on the institutions that you're interested in. And once you decide, okay, these are my 5-6 institutions that I want to apply into, look at the admissions criteria, look at the deadlines, and also the scholarship requirements at those institutions. So again, these are some of the things to consider as you are sort of going through the application process and considering many of these institutions in your path ahead. So what are some of the changes that are going on in terms of, right now with the pandemic, and how are universities adapting to some of those changes, and something to consider for all of you who may be considering to apply to the US perhaps in the next 6 months or about a year. So it's a standardized testing. When you're applying to the US for many of your master's or PhD programs, not all institutions, in fact, I would say even at many institutions, let's say here at Northern Arizona University, if you're applying to certain programs in engineering, we may ask for a GRE requirement. But let's say if you're applying to a program such as communications, then a GRE may not be required. So again, even within higher education institutions in the US, what you find is that different academic programs may come up with their own admission requirements, and there is really no centralized process. So again, paying attention to the university, to the academic program that you're interested in looking at, and focusing on their admission requirements, their deadline, their scholarship requirements is certainly extremely important. Now, right now, due to the pandemic, many institutions are waiving off those test score requirements. So even here at NAU, if you applied to our fall 2021 academic programs, which start in the month of August, and if you're applying for our computer science, mechanical engineering, many of those engineering programs, we are waiving off the GRE requirements there. And similarly for our MBA program, we are waiving off the GMAT requirements there. So again, some of the things to consider there in terms of the requirements. And of course, for the English language proficiency, a lot of institutions these days are now accepting Duolingo. Now, Duolingo certainly helps in terms of taking your English language proficiency test. And of course, all you have to do is basically download an app, and you could pursue that English language test from your home itself instead of going into a test center, unlike some of the other test companies there. So again, these are just some of the updates, some of the changes that have been happening, and something to consider in your path ahead for admissions process and so on. Now, some of the things to consider, again, when you're applying to a US university, a lot of universities may not require you to submit your official transcripts at the time of the admission. So for example, let's say if you're a master's student applying into communications, computer science, or mechanical engineering, or the MBA program here at Northern Arizona University, initially we may only require you to submit your unofficial transcripts for the admission evaluation period. And of course, once you get admitted, we may ask you to submit your official transcripts at that point of time. A lot of you, of course, we understand that classes and examinations have not been happening in person. And so with all of those changes, do communicate with the university, with the admission officers, and certainly I would say majority of the universities and institutions in the United States are willing to adapt to the changes that your home institution might be going through in terms of your examination schedule, or any of those changes in terms of deadlines to submit your official transcript. So we understand the situation on ground. Certainly, of course, in my own case, I have family in India. I've been connecting with friends on a regular basis. So I understand that, if you're in high school, certainly there's been a change in examination schedule, or even at the bachelor's degree level at many other institutions. So being able to connect and communicate with the admission officers at the US institution that you might be applying to certainly will help them understand your case and scenario better. And we're certainly willing to work with our students in all of those cases as well. A lot of US universities, including Northern Arizona University, do offer application fee waivers. So I always encourage students as they begin their application process to reach out to those universities, to reach out to the admission officers and ask for application fee waivers, including at my own university, since universities are certainly encouraging students to consider this option, and they certainly want to make their pathway as much easier as possible in their process going ahead. Again, what have been some of the changes? Now, I'll start with my own experience here at Northern Arizona University, and then certainly talk a little bit about the application process and so on. So, of course, since the pandemic, hit even here in the United States, I would say almost it's going to be 1 year now in March. Now, the good news has been that we certainly have had our classes going on. So this last fall semester, which was our semester from August to December, most US universities had a hybrid semester, and so did Northern Arizona University. Essentially, a hybrid semester basically meant that, let's say, if you have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday for a certain particular class period, couple of days in that week, you might be showing up into the classroom, while one day your classes might be in an online format. And the idea with this was to maintain social distancing. So our students in a classroom are not crowded, but we can bring perhaps half of the student population on one of the days, while the other day, the students can basically log in online. And this way, everyone gets ample opportunities. So that's just one aspect of hybrid classes, hybrid format. But once again, we have an active student organization here at NAU, the Indian Association of Northern Arizona. And, we were extremely lucky to be able to celebrate the festival of Diwali here at NAU last semester. Of course, we had to take a lot of social distancing regulations, but we organized a Diwali exhibition. We invited the campus community. And of course, only 10 people were allowed in the building at one period of time. But that certainly was an opportunity to share our culture, not just with other Indian students, but students here in the United States, and to celebrate the beautiful festival of Diwali. So once again, the good news has been that even in these most challenging of times, we've been able to, do our classes, have that face-to-face interaction, and move ahead. And of course, this semester, the good news has been that we have just started vaccination on campuses, not just on my campus, but I would say most campuses across the United States. And the hope is for most universities is that by the end of spring semester, we will get our faculty, our staff, our student populations, including our international students, vaccinated. And vaccinations are free of cost here on campus because they are covered by student health insurance and so on. So again, certainly positive news and positive changes coming from both from the healthcare perspective, but also the fact that even in these challenging times, we've been able to maintain that on-campus presence, have our residence halls open, have our international students join, including many international students who came from India this spring semester. And that basically highlighted actually, India was one of the few countries that we were able to start the visa processing, the US Embassy and Consulate. And that basically meant that we could have, certainly a number of international students join us, not just at this university, but universities across the US to start their spring semester as well. So again, certainly some good changes overall and the situation on the ground that I always love to share with our students. In terms of going back to some of that enrollment process, some of the things that you may see some changes once again is that a lot of universities may ask you to submit some kind of a deposit. This could be anywhere from about $100 to $300. But again, universities do take into consideration that, let's say, if for some reason you decide to defer your admission to the next semester, we're happy to waive off that deposit or defer your admission as well. Or for some reason, if you're not able to get your visa, you are still able to get that deposit as well. But I have to say, just from talking about the experiences of my own students, the visa process, of course, this last semester was actually quite flexible, and certainly all US consulates and embassy across India were doing an excellent job in being able to review those visa appointments and certainly being able to help our students get to their destination here in the United States. So something to keep in mind is that you may have applied for this spring, or you are probably thinking of applying for this fall semester, but you're still not sure. You're like, okay, what if I'm not able to get a vaccine, or what if the situation doesn't improve by this fall? Trust me, the good news is that even if you get admitted, you can easily defer your admission to the next semester. Universities across the US have been extremely flexible in accommodating these changes to their students. Now, one of the conversations to have had right now is that financial situation has changed a lot for a lot of people across the world due to the COVID-19 situation. And so particularly for our international students, one of the key decision makers for them to study abroad tends to be, the financial aid opportunities, scholarship opportunities that they may receive from the US institutions. And so there's a lot of financial opportunities available, including at my own university. We have something called the International Excellence Award, where we are able to provide about $10,000 of scholarship to our masters as well as our undergraduate students for their academic term here in the United States. So if you're a master's student, you could receive this scholarship of $10,000 both in the first year as well as in the second year as well, and including the scholarship opportunities available to our PhD students also. So we'll talk a little bit about scholarships here. Scholarships in the US tend to be on many different criterias. You certainly have the merit-based scholarships, which is based on your academic grades. A lot of universities will provide those scholarships based on your undergraduate, your bachelor's degree performance, and those tend to be your merit-based scholarships. Your need-based scholarships are, let's say you are someone who is doing academically exceptionally well at your bachelor's degree institution right now in India. Unfortunately, you may not have enough resources to support you. So there are definitely institutions in the US. In many of those cases, I would say many private institutions, particularly a lot of the Ivy League institutions, that if they admit you, they will help you support your education. And they certainly tend to be need blind in the sense that they do not consider your finances in terms of your admissions process. And if they admit you, they will be able to support you with those need-based scholarships as well. There are country-based scholarships. Here at NAU, we have a specific scholarship for a female student coming from South Asia. This could be India, Sri Lanka, many of those neighboring countries in South Asia. And the idea of starting that South Asia-based scholarship was because we had an alumni who came from that part of the world and wanted to focus on a region-based scholarship. So again, similarly, many institutions here in the United States may have a country-based scholarship because one of their alumni from that part of that world may have funded that scholarship. Now you have some government-funded scholarships as well. A lot of the government-funded scholarships in the US tend to be more focused on the domestic students, but you do have many government-funded scholarships in your home country as well. Obviously, it differs from country to country a little bit, but that's certainly another option to consider. Certainly, of course, you have external scholarships that come from privately funded scholarships, foundations here in the US, foundations such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is just one of them. The IIE, which is sort of this, the parent organization, and an organization that works extremely close with Education USA and State Department. They give out many international scholarships as well. So there are certainly external organizations providing help to international students, and of course athletic scholarships, but also your departmental scholarships coming from your academic programs as well. Athletic scholarships can be a little bit challenging, but at the same time, even here at NAU, we do have student athletes. In fact, we have a student athlete, Sanjana, who was the second female basketball player to come to the United States on a fully funded athletic scholarship. And she was, only the second female to come from India to play in the basketball team at a Division I level in the United States. So again, plenty of opportunities. I'm not saying it's easy to apply and get these scholarships, but opportunities are available. And if you certainly push yourself, if you start researching, there's plenty of opportunities in terms for you to finding those financial aid opportunities, either from the institution that you're applying to or from external organization and institutions as well. Now, when you're applying for the financial aid resources, and apologies on a slightly lighter font here, some of the external organizations that you could reach out to, one of them, of course, Janet is here, so I would highly recommend you all to connect with Education USA. Education USA is an unbelievably great resource. And certainly, an institution like myself gets to work with them, but they work with universities across the United States. not just limited to public or private institutions or universities across the East or West Coast, but throughout the US. And that basically means that at the end of the day, they want to make sure that you apply to your best fit institution. They have knowledge about scholarships, because just like my institution, they connect with institutions across the US. They have information about deadlines, admission process, and all of that good stuff. So certainly, again, as someone who has been in the field now for a long time, both as a student and now on the admission side, I highly encourage you to connect with Education USA for their knowledge and information and their connections with universities across the United States. And trust me, unlike unlike many of the other external organizations in India, Education USA tends to be much, tends to be completely unbiased, because for them, the most important criteria is what's the best institution for you. So for some students, that may be NAU, but for other students, it might be other universities and many others that may be offering a different number of academic programs that may fit well for you as well. So I'm just briefly going to talk a little bit about, of course, the US visa process. The good news has been here that even in the pandemic, the US consulates and embassy were one of the first few to begin. And so we started getting processed a lot of visas, and we certainly got a huge group of students coming from India this spring, this January semester. So again, things are challenging. I certainly understand with the pandemic, but certainly the processes are in place. And as I shared with you here, including about NAU, that vaccination has already started. In fact, I actually just got my first dose here a few days back, and we are in the process of getting all faculty, staff, and students vaccinated, including our international students, before this semester ends. So, again, I'm hoping that as we get into the fall semester, fall 2021, we can get back to the normal, or as normal as these things are. And certainly the admission processes are in place, but also the visa processes have started, including at all consulates and embassy in India. So if you're someone who's thinking about studying abroad, this is your time. Get started with the process. Start looking at universities, go through the admission process, and that way you can get started with your application for the visa as well. Once again, Education USA is a fantastic resource. They have, certainly they have the knowledge and the background and the connections to bring in people from those consulates often to talk about these processing as well. So certainly a wonderful resource to learn about the visa processing part as well from my colleagues in Education USA as well. So we will keep moving ahead as we go. Let's see. Now, employment and internships and career opportunities, this is something that you will find that a lot of international students coming from India certainly consider as one of the reasons why they want to come to the US. Now, what is fascinating about the United States is that, again, doesn't matter if you're in fashion design or hospitality or technology, or the financial sector, the major companies in essentially every major field is here in the United States. So for example, we were talking about technology companies. Here in Arizona, Intel, one of the major chip manufacturing giants, has one of its second largest manufacturing plant here. You have companies in chip manufacturing from Raytheon. You have companies like Honeywell. You have companies in the business sector, many who have their certainly their headquarters here. And Zoom, of course, recently established one of their regional headquarters also here in Phoenix. So what you certainly have is not just platforms for great education in the US, but you have these many companies that you could apply for, that you could consider for your own experiential learning opportunity once you finish your education in the United States. In fact, I'm happy to share that the current administration, the Biden administration, has even emphasized that if you are a student in a doctorate field, perhaps pursuing PhD, the pathway to the processing of a permanent residency or green card will be made much easier by the US government. And part of that is, again, you do have students coming from many different fields, including the arts and design and many other sectors, who have gone on to do exceptionally well here in the United States. So again, certainly technology companies, But when you look around and you find people such as including Fareed Zakaria, who's a major media personality working for CNN, he came to the US as an international student also. So not just the technology sector, where certainly, of course, Indians and international students have done exceptionally well, but there are many other sectors as well. And part of that is those employment internship opportunities. And one great opportunity is the OPT, the optional practical training. And what this means is that once you finish your education here in the US, you are able to pursue that kind of experiential learning opportunity with any of those major organizations in the US. And if you're a student in the STEM field, that can be extended up to 3 years as well. So certainly lots of good opportunities. And one of the things that students ask me in this time is that, due to the pandemic, what is the situation of many of these companies across the United States? And when you look at many of these companies, from Amazon to Zoom to Google, many others, they've done actually quite well, and they have grown even in these last 9 to 12 months because of the reliance on many of these technologies, but also how these companies have adapted. Tesla, is now one of the largest car manufacturing companies, not just in the electric sector, but in general. And so once again, these are American companies that are doing quite well, and not just the technology companies. When you look at the healthcare sector, some of the major vaccine manufacturers, from Moderna to Pfizer to Johnson and Johnson, these are American biotechnology companies. So once again, what you see here is, opportunities not just in the technology sector, but also in healthcare and many others that seem to be doing quite well, even in these challenging times also. So a little bit about NAU as we sort of come to the end of our presentation. Northern Arizona University, which I work and represent, of course, we're based here out of Flagstaff, Arizona. We're in the northern part of the state of Arizona. We're a public university, population of about 22,000 students, and certainly offering more than 150 academic programs. So if you're someone interested in engineering, interested in business programs, interested in hospitality, or social sciences such as communication, certainly we do have all of those programs for you to consider. We do also offer some substantial scholarships, the International Excellence Award, which basically is $10,000. Now, if you're a master's student, that means you will be receiving $10,000 in both of your years as part of your scholarship criteria. And our tuition approximately comes down to between 25 to 26,000 US dollars per year. So that $10,000 scholarship will cut down that tuition further as well. We've been ranked among the top engineering programs in the United States, but also among the top hospitality programs, as well as many programs from climate science action, environmental science, MBA, also have been among the top 100 academic programs in the US. So certainly a lot of good opportunities for our international students to consider here in the at Northern Arizona University. But again, we're just one of the many options available to you in the US. And that's where, again, connecting with us certainly is a great option, but connecting with your Education USA advisor who can help you according to your needs, according to your best fit, according to the kind of financial value that you might be looking at, what is the best institution for you here in the United States. So that's pretty much everything from my side. I'm going to go ahead and stop my presentation and would be happy to take any questions here from our colleagues or from our students here in the presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rag, for giving such a detailed information. So, being a representative from a university, you yourself have, communicated a lot of things, like what all changes due to this pandemic, a lot of, how they are helping our students, those who are aiming for the higher education, right? So that indeed was very helpful for our students, for those who are at least planning for, for the August intake. Right? I have few questions that I could get. First is, we have a lot of students from medical and paramedical field over here, like may that be physiotherapy, pharmacy, and so on. So those students always find a challenge to get a good course or correct course for them, because most of them are aiming for their masters. So can you just let us know what are the good courses which will be helpful for them for their future when it comes to US?
Great. Thank you so much, Sherry. And I think that's a really excellent question in terms of students, from India who are possibly considering some of the medical-based programs in the United States. Now, what happens sometimes, and I think physical therapy is certainly a good example of that, because we do have a physical therapy program here at NAU, and international students are certainly more than eligible to apply for that program, and we do get international students in that program. Now, sometimes the challenge with medical programs in the United States is that they tend to be slightly different in terms of their academic structure than in India. So for example, let's say if you're a physical therapy student in India, you often may complete your bachelor's and then go on to do your master's degree in physical therapy. Now, the physical therapy programs in the US have structured a little bit differently. And so a lot of times students may pursue a bachelor's degree and then go on to do something called the DPT, essentially the doctorate program in physical therapy, which is essentially your graduate degree, and not go through a master's program. So structurally, when some of these things change, what happens is the requirements in terms of admission for a physical therapy program in the US might be certainly a little different. So for example, the DPT program here at NAU tends to require that students may have some general education courses that sometimes institutions in India may not offer. So a lot of times those students may, perhaps take some of those courses, online from a community college and so on. So essentially trying to do some kind of bridge courses that would basically bring them at par at a student who is applying from the United States into one of those graduate programs or one of those medical programs in the US. So medical programs, one has to be a little cautious because the admission requirements in the US tends to be a little bit different than India. And sometimes certainly, those are competitive programs. So the opportunities tend to be a little bit limited for international students, partly because of the academic structuring and how things are. Now, again, things can be quite different from institution to institutions, and that also sort of adds perhaps to the complexity of the admissions process at medical programs. So for example, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues. This is an institution in the Midwest, Creighton University in Nebraska. Now, Creighton University, of course, if you're someone as an international student, you could apply to go and pursue your education in the field of medicine at Creighton. It's a private university. They sort of build their own regulations. Now, at some of the public universities in the US, that tends to be a little bit different, partially because they tend to be government funded. So because of those criteria, they tend to focus their admission cycle first on your permanent residents as well as your US citizens before they jump into the pool of international student applicants. So, unfortunately, there's not one clear answer, but what I always recommend is, so for example, here in physical therapy, if we have an international student interested, I often connect them with many of our faculty, and we do actually have international faculty in those programs, some of them who actually started their journey from India itself. And so they are able to help those international students understand what are some of those bridge courses they need to take just to position themselves to be able to apply and get admissions in some of those medical programs in the US. And similarly, I think, I would say the same perspective is for nursing programs, or if you're looking into some of the dental hygiene programs or dental programs in the US, there may be some bridge courses for students to take before they can be eligible to apply in some of those medical programs. Now, outside of that, what is fascinating is that there are many medical programs that don't tend to have similar limitations. So for example, here at NAU, we have a program in health informatics. So essentially you have folks who are looking into the data science, but more from a bioinformatics or health informatics point of view. And the idea here is that, when you're in a pandemic, you're looking at essentially data of all kinds to make predictions of what the situation is going to be. And that's essentially one example of bioinformatics or health informatics that you're looking at. And, even this semester here at NAU, we actually had students from India who had backgrounds in, who had backgrounds in the dentistry side, who decided to transition and sort of get into the health informatics side. So that was one example. The other side is again, you're looking into public health. So if you're someone interested in working on the administrative side of public health education, that is again a program that we offer, public health policy and management. And that certainly helps you to be in a more administrative role, perhaps running a hospital, or a clinic at some point of time, not just completely the medical side, but more sort of in the day-to-day administration and the management side of things. So I would say, the healthcare field is vast, and depending on what students may be looking at, there's definitely opportunities. Some, of course, tend to be a little bit limited because of the competitive nature of that program. But then you have now programs in health informatics, health data science, things of that nature, which certainly have tremendous opportunities, not just working in the medical sector, but also working for the medical health insurance sector, or for the governments, and so on. So definitely a lot of different variety that students could consider, sort of, choosing different paths. And depending on that, the admissions process might vary a little bit, I would say.
Right. Janet, would you like to add in something over here?
Right, thanks, Sherry. So, just wanted to add a couple of things that, as rightly said by Rag, previously the physical therapy students were offered a master's program in the US. I think, maybe 4 or 5 years back, I'm talking about. And then there were the doctoral programs also. But then there were so much of variations in terms of the requirements, also in terms of the curriculum acceptance and things like that. Because usually these students will end up going for a DPT program. So, to probably have a uniformity of everything, the master's program at the physical therapy subject has been mostly discontinued by, the universities in the US. And now they are offering the DPT program soon after you do your bachelor's in the, maybe probably from India or any other country. So there's a huge variation, because sometimes, when the students are talking, they may talk about, oh, I have someone who went for a master's program in physical therapy, why can't I go now? Right? But then things have changed, so we have to be really updated about it. And that's where, as rightly said by Rag, Education USA is one that resource we keeps on updating ourselves in terms of what are the changes in the US higher education system. And that's where, we are providing the current information to the students.
Yeah. So here, if I try to summarize, so if I understand, for any medical or paramedical student, if he wants to go for USA, he has to go for a bridge course, I would say, like a DPT course or something like that. So it is not always, if he is able to find a course matching to him when it comes to private university, he can go for that. But when it comes to public universities, these are the majorly changes that have happened in last 5 years. So they have to go for a DPT course when they're going to apply for their masters.
Right. And again, Sherry, something that I would like to add here is that the medical and the paramedical programs, if a student is completing their undergraduation from India, they get that license to practice. For example, a physical therapy students will be a physical therapist, pharmacist kind of thing. When you move to US, it's a completely different system that you go to. So, there are also the license exam that the student has to follow to actually work as a physical, physiotherapist, or a pharmacist, or maybe a physician kind of thing. So they also have to be cautious about those extra requirements that they should keep in mind, that you can't just go to US, start studying a master's program, and you can also start practicing what you were doing here back in India. So that's also a major difference that the student has to keep in mind. Rag, if you want to add something to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And again, something to keep in mind that, again, a lot of those medical programs, medical professional programs do have sort of a licensing processing also that sort of goes parallelly with that. So again, you might be, a dentist or a doctor in your home country, but again, or even a lawyer for that matter, any of those professional programs. But to be able to practice that here, you certainly have to get that background, the education, but also follow the steps for the licensing as well. So again, things can be a little different, but certainly I think, connecting with Education USA, you can find a good institution which may be able to fulfill your requirements for the academic program that you're looking at.
Okay, right. Thank you so much. So again, there was a question with pharmacy student as well. So I guess it falls, gives the same answer for both medical and paramedic. Now, when it comes to MBA, that is management, now, is there any work experience necessary for a BBA student or for a bachelor student to go for MBA, or they can just apply for that?
So I would say it really sort of varies institution to institution. I would say that would be sort of the general answer. And part of that is, again, because US institutions tend to sort of, build their own admission requirements from university to university. Here at NAU, we don't. So again, it's certainly encouraged, any kind of work background or experience, but it's not a requirement. Now, having said that, there will be institutions that will require you to have perhaps a certain amount of work experience for that MBA program and so on. So I think it'll vary institution to institution, but in general, I would say at our institution, of course, it's encouraged, but not required.
Okay, thank you. Now, how is a dual degree, like how was the process for the dual degree, if in case if any student wants to go for a dual degree? So is the application criteria same for them as well?
So mostly it sort of remains the same. Now, I will say at the master's level, a lot of the dual degree options tend to be a lot more flexible at the bachelor's degree. And part of that is, again, you might be taking a lot of sort of common general education courses, in social sciences, mathematics, and different areas. Now, at the master's level, what happens is that you're essentially pursuing a very specialized education. And so for depending on what you're studying, let's say if you want to do an MBA and perhaps a master's in computer science together, the courses are probably going to be extremely very different. And so, in that respect, if you're pursuing sort of a dual degree, you're essentially trying to do 2 degrees at the same time, which certainly adds a lot more time, a lot of more courses, and perhaps even I would say, financially you're paying for 2 different degrees and so on. Now, again, the admissions process might be different also. So for example, let's say if you apply to an MBA program here at NAU, as well as a master's in computer science, there are 2 different departments that are making those admission decisions. Now, having said that, there's a lot of institutions here in the US that tend to have some interdisciplinary programs. And so if you're someone who is at the master's level and perhaps is interested in doing some kind of a dual degree because you have interest in 2 different areas, perhaps looking at some of those interdisciplinary programs might be a better choice for you. So for example, a lot of institutions these days, they offer, courses in information systems and business combined together, as in business information systems, business analytics, things of that nature. So perhaps looking at something which is more interdisciplinary might be more of value to a student applying for someone who has interest in dual degrees at the master's level, I would say so.
Okay. Yeah, another question was when it comes to applying for scholarships, as you mentioned. So these scholarships, I understand, is something that we have to apply before we reach US, or before, like when we are applying for the registration, right? Are there similarly scholarships available for the students once they reach there? So in case if that's so, can a student apply for more than one scholarships at a time?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, particularly in these times, as students obviously are looking for more opportunities in terms of financial aid. So again, I'll start with my own institution and sort of enlarge that for institutions in general, and I'm sure Janet will be able to add some more information on that. So here at NAU, of course, we have scholarships that students can apply approximately about the same time when they're applying for admissions. And that can get started within their first semester itself. Now, there are a lot more departmental scholarships that students would be eligible to apply, but a lot of those departmental specific scholarships does require that the students start their education, spend at least a semester or 2 before they're eligible to apply for those scholarships, because those tend to be based on their academic performance at NAU. So yes, I would say most universities may have scholarships that you could apply even before getting started. And then there are scholarship opportunities that you could apply once you get to the institution and apply perhaps based on your academic performance at the end of one semester. And those can certainly be added. And we do have those scholarships that can be kind of stacked together, perhaps for a larger amount as well. Now, again, this may differ from institution to institution. I would say, and again, sometimes even department to department. So for example, programs sometimes in certain areas may have more, scholarships or research money or grant money available. And those academic programs may be able to offer more to their students as compared to perhaps a different area. So again, a lot of those scholarships may vary, not just from university to university, but even within the same university, you will find that some programs may have more scholarships available as compared to some of the other areas, just because of factors such as research money, grant money, etc., available there also.
Yeah, can I think to
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
Sherry?
Yes, yes.
Right. So I think, that's where it's usually said when it comes to applying to the US universities that it's always good if you apply early, right? Because, the priority deadlines or the scholarship deadlines are quite early than the regular admission deadlines. And that's the reason, because all the departments, all the programs may have those limited funds to give out to the students, specifically international students. Right, so that's where we encourage that it's good to start applying early to the universities, get yourself admitted. One thing that the student has to remember is that first is the admission and then comes the scholarships. Right, so first you have to get admitted. Probably, most of the time the universities will come back to you at the time of the admission, informing you that what sort of scholarships you have been awarded. If there isn't any scholarship being awarded to you, you can still go back, ask your admission officer, ask the university representative that are there any scholarships that I can look at or maybe I can apply to, because even the deadlines are there. You have to remember that too. And we have seen students who have who have been outspoken, or who have taken initiative to reach out to the universities asking questions about the fundings. They have got certain good answers. They have got something good funding about, in terms of the scholarships. So yes, is all about being outspoken, being sell yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you don't tell anyone, nobody is going to come back to you asking that, oh, do you need something,
Yeah.
right? You have to talk about it. You have to ask the questions, and I'm sure the universities are more than happy to answer all your questions. We have been, experienced. We have got students in the past who have gone to the US without any scholarships or funding, and after going there, they have grabbed the opportunities of being a graduate assistantship, or maybe finding a teaching assistantship, teaching the undergraduate classes, and they have not asked a single penny from their parents. So anything is possible when it comes to the US. It's just that you have to take that, a first step towards maybe going without any scholarship, and then try and find out what are the ways that you can get it done.
Yes. Having said that, Janet, like, what is, the deadlines that we have when it comes to the August intake? Anytime, anywhere between which month do we generally have the deadlines?
So ideally, let me say that when does it start? So the application cycle for fall, we call it the fall intake, which starts in late August or maybe September, depending on the universities.
Okay.
So the application cycle opens a year before, almost a year before. I would say September end or October. The universities, they start rolling out their application portals. The deadlines, it actually varies as per the universities. It can be as early as November also. It can be as late as May also of the next year. So it
Okay.
depends. But yes, scholarship deadlines, usually they close by December
Okay.
of the previous year. Then there are regular admissions happening. The students can still apply. They can still expect the admissions. There may not be funding. I'm not saying that there will not be a funding. There may be some, but if they are applying in the priority deadlines or the scholarship deadlines, the universities, they do consider their profiles for the fundings that they have. And they, again, there is no guarantee, even if you are applying under that particular deadline, which is a scholarship deadline, that you will definitely get a scholarship, right? It's the way that you are applying early. You are trying to tell the universities that I need some funding. Your profile will be checked. They will see holistically how strong is your profile, and then the department will decide that what sort of fundings can be given to you as a student. Rag, would you like to add something out to it?
Sure. No, I think that's fantastic in terms of the timeline. And, I would again, say the same words, basically like the earlier you apply, the better your chances are. Every university, every department has a certain sum of, a pot of money. And so again, being able to reach out to your admission officers, your, departmental faculty at the graduate level and asking them, what's the criteria for the scholarship? What are the funding opportunities in terms of perhaps scholarship, graduate assistantships? I think those are important things. And being able to communicate, one of the things I always tell my students is that, sometimes you may have to email the faculty member more than once. Don't just think that you email the faculty and they didn't respond, because they're not interested in you. Faculty certainly tend to get busy during the semesters. They have their research, their classes, a lot going on. So sometimes you just have to be persistent, reaching out to the faculty, reaching out to the admission officers, and just finding the opportunities, because trust me, funding is there. There's plenty of funding opportunities available. There's plenty of graduate assistantships available, but you just have to keep sort of, looking exactly what's the process, be persistent. If you don't get a reply back in one email, don't get discouraged. Trust me, people can be a little bit busy. So reach out to the faculty again, and, I'm sure you'll find those opportunities along the way.
Right, thank you so much. Now, one last question is with regards to, how are students allowed to work during the studies, and is it in campus or outside campus as well?
Sure. So really good question. And so for international students, of course, they can work on campus during the semesters when, they have their classes going on. They can work up to 20 hours a week on campus only. Now, during their semester breaks, let's say during the winter break or during the summer break, or during the summer semester, when it's not mandatory for international students to take classes, they can work up to 40 hours per week on campus also. So the on-campus part, of course, remains. Now, in terms of working off campus, there are opportunities, of course, through your CPT and your OPT. So CPT is something which is your curricular practical training. So if you're someone who is interested in getting some kind of experiential learning in your degree, so for example, if I'm studying, let's say mechanical engineering, and if I want to work for a car manufacturing company, it makes a lot of sense with my particular education and degree. So in that case, you certainly have to fill out the information, submit the paperwork, and then you are allowed to work in the form of a CPT for that particular organization and so on off campus. So again, there are opportunities and exceptions available in that sense to work off campus with your CPT and OPT. But overall, while your classes are happening, students can only work on campus. There's plenty of opportunities, trust me, on campus. A lot of our students here at NAU, many of them at the graduate level, work as research assistants, as teaching assistants. Our students at the bachelor's level, they work from the library to the dining halls to many other such good places on campus itself. And so plenty of opportunities all available to our students, even in these times, I would say. And again, I think the good thing is that, again, reach out to people, build your resume. As Janet pointed out, in the US, it's important to speak up. I think that culture sort of promotes you to speak up, ask questions, find your way in terms of those opportunities on campus, scholarships, part-time jobs, things like that. Most universities, including ours, we utilize something called like a job portal where students can go in and find those on-campus job opportunities. We do also organize part-time job fairs for our international students to look for those opportunities. And then again, I always tell my students, our new students, that connect with your peers. A lot of times, being able to connect with your peers who have been here for 1, 2, or 3 semesters or more, they know where are the jobs, and they may let you, even before the job posting goes into a job portal. So plenty of opportunities, and certainly, as graduate students, you could work as a graduate research assistant, a teaching assistant, or in many of those roles, and certainly not only get a stipend out of that, but also get your tuition waived also, depending on the assistantship that you may receive.
Right. Janet, would you like to add on to this?
Just one thing that these opportunities, the student should understand that they can be paid or sometimes unpaid also, because they are there to give you those extra skills, so how to implement the knowledge and the expertise that you are getting from your US degree. You want to implement that, you want to check it out, that how does it work when it comes to a practical world. But we call it internships usually, right? So internships can be paid, unpaid also. The student has to prepare their mind that you are going to learn there, right? Not on there. So that's something that you have to keep in mind while you are searching these kind of opportunities. So something that I would like to add it from my
Yeah,
side.
so the students will be getting some certificate or anything on completion of their duration, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
They can also get recommendations, which they can use towards their, maybe placement searches that they are doing. And we have seen, Sherry, that a good trend that we have seen at the students who are doing the internships at various places. Maybe at the end of the day, the person is ready to take them up as a full time, opportunity or something, a good placement, because the person has experience, they know the setup, they know the workplace, so it's very easy for them to get absorbed to. So that's something which a student can actually look at, that when you are even getting an unpaid internships or an unpaid opportunities, take it very seriously and try to show that, okay, what are your strengths, right? Can you be an asset to that particular organization, because later on those kind of references will definitely come back to you.
Yeah. So I guess that was it from the question answer we got from the students. Anything else as we end towards the closing of this webinar? Anything else you would like to add on from your side, Rag and Janet, both of you?
Rag, you first.
Sure. Thank you. No, I'll just basically, emphasize once again what I think Janet pointed out, that in terms of opportunities, even internships, perhaps your first internship is going to be unpaid, but trust me, that's perfectly fine. That experience, that recommendation that you receive is really, really important to be able to sort of climb that ladder. In my own experience, when I came to the US, I had two jobs essentially in my first semester. I was working in the dining hall. So at that point of time, we had Burger King, one of our places on campus. So I was working on Burger King, and that was certainly helping me to, get a paycheck and pay some of my bills. But at the same time, as a communication student, I was also writing for my university newspaper. Now that was an unpaid opportunity, but I knew that would certainly help me with my resume, with my skills, with my experience and connections. And that certainly did, leading to a public relations internship that summer, at another firm off campus. So again, sometimes you have to balance things. I understand that, being able to find an opportunity that certainly pays you is good. But perhaps that first experience or internship might be unpaid. Perhaps there are opportunities in leadership roles, being a part of an organization. Again, it's not going to pay you, but it will add more experience to you, and in the long term would be beneficial. So take those opportunities on, because at the end of the day, it's not just your grades that will help you find your jobs, but it's also that experience, that comes with these internships, many of them perhaps even unpaid, that will help you find that sort of dream job that you're considering. So that would be my last word. Yeah.
Yeah, Sherry, are you there?
Yes, Janet, please.
Okay, right. Just one last thing, if you have any further questions, we are right there in your region. We are just in the middle of Ahmedabad, so you can reach out to us for any further questions if you have related to your plans, or how should I plan my timeline if you want to apply for fall 2021 and beyond the intake. We are happy to help you out with that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rag and Janet, for being such a source of inspiration, information for our students, and to all the students those are connected us with right now. Here, I would like to share, like, we have been continuously, being in touch with the students. We have been promoting this, like, in case like you're planning for your masters, please approach international relations cell at Parallel University. We are here, we are, continuously aiming and striving to provide you with all such kind of opportunities. So with this webinar, I hope many of your doubts you might have got answered to a lot of your questions. But still, if you want more information, if you want to get in, enrolled with us, you want to, search for your courses which can be available for you for the next coming intakes, more information, please get in touch with International Relations Cell at Parallel University. We are in the BBA building, ground floor. You can just come to our office. You can visit any of our counselors, and we will be happy to help you out. Right? We can even help you get connected to Janet also, and we can also give you out all those information that is necessary for you, which you can take a decision of your form. I would not take a decision, but form your decision of planning for your masters in US. So thank you so much, Janet and Rak, for joining with us today, and we hope to see you soon.
Absolutely, Sherry. Thank you so much. And let me tell you, Rag is also most, he is very reachable. So students were having, specific questions even for Rag. You can email Rag. He has already shared his email ID in the slides that he presented. So he'll be
Yeah.
happy to even answer the questions of your students.
Yeah, so what we can do over here is, Janet, like we can, students can approach us because we will be the nearest point of contact for the students,
Absolutely.
right? And that will help, for even for us to get connected and share the information with you as well. So
Sure.
all the students, they can just get in touch with us. So from us, we will be able to, turn or help you get in touch with you and also get the information shared with the students.
Definitely. Definitely. Thanks, Sherry.
Right.
Thank you so
Thank you
much. Thank you
again.
so much, Raj. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Take care.
Rag. See you then.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you for all the
Right.
participants for joining in for today's webinar. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night. Have a good day.